Our ground troops headed to the Middle East to fight ISIS. The president gave us an answer today. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome to The Wrap, everybody. I'm Joe Concha. I'm joined by Huffington Post columnist and Reverend Jenny Crumpton.
Hi.
And he is the co-host of Steele and Unger on Sirius XM Radio. Rick Unger is here. How are you, sir?
Always good to be here.
And she is a political strategist and author. Noelle McFour is here.
I had to sit up for author.
I was trying to build the anticipation.
Author.
Anyway.
It worked really well.
I think it did. Let's go to the Daily Download. And today, President Obama announced he was going to ask Congress for war powers to fight against ISIS. Let's listen.
Today, my administration submitted a draft resolution to Congress to authorize the use of force against ISIL. I want to be very clear about what it does and what it does not do. This resolution reflects our core objective to destroy ISIL. It supports the comprehensive strategy that we've been pursuing with our allies and our partners. A systemic and sustained campaign of airstrikes against ISIL in Iraq and Syria, support and training for local forces on the ground, including the moderate Syrian opposition, preventing ISIL attacks in the region and beyond, including by foreign terrorist fighters who try to threaten our countries, regional and international support for an inclusive Iraqi government that unites the Iraqi people and strengthens Iraqi forces against ISIL, humanitarian assistance for the innocent civilians of Iraq and Syria who are suffering so terribly under ISIL's reign of horror.
Okay, so the elephant in the room, are we sending ground troops? All indications from the White House pointed in that direction.
The resolution we've submitted today does not call for the deployment of U.S. ground combat forces to Iraq or Syria. It is not the authorization of another ground war, like Afghanistan or Iraq. The 2,600 American troops in Iraq today largely serve on bases. And yes, they face the risks that come with service in any dangerous environment, but they do not have a combat mission.
I want to bring in retired Major General Paul E. Valley, who is also the chairman of Stand Up America. General, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Joe, for having me on.
So, General, the president has been criticized by the right and by the left as being weak on ISIS. Did he change that perception today?
No, I think it's more rhetoric, Joe, and, troops on the ground, and I'll try to dispel that myth or that misunderstanding what that is, if you'd like. But this is more rhetoric. Listen, we're at war. You have to have a strategy to win, and we don't have to tell the enemy what the strategy is. We don't even pronounce or say ahead of time what current and future operations will be. So there's a lot of rhetoric there, not a lot of specifics, especially on what has occurred other than generalities that we've reduced their capability, we've limited them to a great degree. That's all rhetoric. They're not specifics that we need to have in what we call a post-damage assessment of the bombings over there.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, General, where we heard throughout the week that the president will be asking for authorization to take more action against ISIS, but I feel like we've already been taking action to a certain extent, at least with all the airstrikes. So I agree with you in the sense where it does seem to be symbolic. I guess my question is, will this be successful?
No, it won't be successful because he's a weak leader. The Middle East understands that. The leaders over there, their coalition of 60-some countries that he said earlier is a myth. The only coalition right now is King Abdullah, with limited support from the United States and some limited support in Iraq by the Iraqi forces. But, this whole thing about troops on the ground, we have troops in Jordan, we have troops on the ground in Turkey, in Kuwait, in Iraq, 2,600 in Iraq serving. But we need to have joint strike force operations. We need to have air ground forces, special ops on the ground, eyes and ears, locating the targets, and then bringing in the laser-guided missiles, bring in the B-52s, and I would unload on ISIS to the nth degree, and let's get victory over this barbaric organization.
That sounds like a pretty good plan, and we certainly appreciate you joining us, General, today, and thanks again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
That was General Paul E. Valley. And let's bring in our panel right here. And Noelle, you heard what the general had to say. What do you think?
Well, I think he's right on. I think it is a lot of empty rhetoric, and I think that most Americans view his foreign policy as a little weak. I mean, you have to remember way back in the day when he won in '08, he started off with an apology tour where he's bowing to leaders. Yeah, so you've got to realize, first of all, this is a president who doesn't really want to be involved in this at all. He doesn't really want to even, say the word terrorism or radical Islam. So this is not his forte. It's not really what he likes to do, but he's been forced, he's been called on the carpet to do something. So I feel that it's just a lot of good rhetoric that he thinks the public needs to hear now.
Rick, you're shaking your head in total agreement.
Speaking of rhetoric, here's the funny part. I actually agree with the general's prescription. I want to blow him off the earth too. But let me tell you what drives me nuts. The president got up there today, he painted way too rosy a picture. He was running down our accomplishments against ISIL so far. He was clearly being too rosy. But then I hear General Valley, who I've heard so many times before, and all due respect, Noelle, the same talking points I've heard for 6 years. And you know what? This will get us nowhere. He does care about ISIL. He has to care. He may be doing a terrible job in fighting them. Let me finish. But this whole rhetoric thing is so stupid. I want there to be a new strategy. I think the reality is whatever gains that we've made there, when we find out that their forces are growing by leaps and bounds, latest estimate being it's now gone to 200,000, that means we aren't doing enough. We will not get there. We will not get to where we need to get to. He won't get there if this stupid conversation continues. Push the president to do what you want him to do. Stop calling him names and saying he doesn't care.
And the number you brought up before
it's such a waste.
Is very disconcerting.
It's important. It is disconcerting.
Well, because it was 20,000 or it's 40,000, and the fact that it's gone to 200,000,
that should bother
and we've
everybody.
done airstrike after airstrike, and it seems like, Jenny, that while we're containing, perhaps we're not doing really anything to cripple this organization.
Well, we are actually doing a lot to dismantle their leadership and reduce their resources. But look, again, I'm going to say this is not the same old war we're fighting. This is non-state actors. President Obama made it very clear that our strategy is to work with people in the region and support their troops, and to send in special forces when they need to do very specific things. We can't do the old thing anymore.
Either way, well, you're right about that. And either way, this is escalating in one way or another, that's for certain. Coming up next, NBC News nightly anchor Brian Williams gets some bad news. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV.
This was a bungled attempt by me to thank one special veteran, and by extension, our brave military men and women, veterans everywhere, those who have served while I did not. I hope they know they have my greatest respect, and also now my apology.
So how did that apology work out for Brian Williams anyway? Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. I am Joe Concha with Jenny Crumpton, Rick Unger, and Noelle Nikpour. Attention everyone, with Photoshop, you can now stop inserting Brian Williams into historical photos. This after NBC made a decision regarding the future of their top-rated anchor. But since I did bring up the whole funny photos thing, let's take a look at a couple more you may have seen before I tell you what NBC decided. Photo number 1 will be...
No,
There
it is.
It is Brian Williams with the boss, Bruce Springsteen of New Jersey, and he's thanking him for writing Born to Run. Photo number 2, there he is, actually in the Civil War, wearing a very modern suit, despite being back in that time. So
I took
good for
that
him.
picture.
There he is in the back of Rick. Clarified for me this earlier that is a presidential Lincoln before Kennedy was shot. Amazing that he wasn't hit because of there was a magic bullet, obviously, that hit the governor as well. So anyway, that was fun, wasn't it? So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, NBC News made a decision. Brian Williams, even though he apologized and even suspended himself, has been suspended by the network for 6 months without pay. For those keeping score at home, that's a $5 million suspension. Williams makes $10 million a year. Here's what NBC News President Deborah Turnus said Quote, as managing editor and anchor of Nightly News, Brian has a responsibility to be truthful and to uphold the high standards of the news division at all times. We felt it would have been wrong to discard the good work Brian has done and the special relationship he has forged with our viewers for over 22 years. Millions of Americans have turned to him every day, and he has been a very important and well-respected part of our organization, end quote. Interesting, but seriously, off the air for 6 months without pay. Noelle, let's start with you. Does the punishment fit the crime?
The punishment fits the crime. I mean, let's face it. In every job, in every marriage, in every friendship relationship, honesty is the best policy. When you break the trust, no matter if it's a friend, no matter if it's your job, you're out. I think that this is just going to ease him totally out. I think that if it were one comment that he lied about or had a discrepancy, that's one thing. But my gosh, now there's a floating body, there's all sorts of things that are going to be looked at. And I don't know why he did it. I guess maybe it was the arrogance of his position, thinking that anything that he said would be the authority or set the record. And because he was riding so high to keep that #1 spot, I guess that he wanted to act like he was in the moment of the news.
I had a theory on it, and I think it's a pretty good one, that he was both a reporter or a journalist,
Right.
an anchor, and a celebrity.
Yes.
And his love for the celebrity side of the job
Yeah.
eclipsed his responsibilities as a journalist. And what we saw
Yeah.
from I know it's a 6-month suspension.
Yeah.
You talk to anybody, there are too many things he has to overcome and too many investigations going on into every report he's ever done over
Yeah.
22 years. That is not a suspension that we're looking at now. That is an obituary.
Well, do you remember when he hosted SNL? I mean, he's a reporter, he's a journalist, and I thought that role of putting him in kind of a comedian spot, I mean, that in itself is inappropriate.
He's the face of the brand. He's not just the nightly news anchor.
Absolutely.
And so when he goes on late night television, they're doing it to try to appeal to younger viewers. But I think it really backfired on him trying to be so cool. But,
Right.
the CEO of NBC Universal, Steve Burke, left the door open for him. He said he deserved severe punishment, but that he also deserved a second chance and that they are rooting for him. So, when the CEO of NBC Universal has that to say, it really leaves the door open. People like an underdog. In America, this happens a lot with people in the NFL and other people who behave
You're
badly.
right. They love a comeback, certainly. Rick, here's why I don't think he can come back, however, because there are two very provable things that NBC just has to look at, and it's not a matter of, well, you mentioned the body in Katrina. There were floodwaters on the edge of the Ritz-Carlton where he was staying. There's enough ambiguity to save him. Now, that said, in that same instance, he's in the Ritz-Carlton and says that it's being overrun by gangs and said he had to resort to, right, Ritz, and the police actually had a staging station in there. But he said he had to go to a stairwell, and a policeman got him out of there. A policeman he says he's still friends with to this day. So I would imagine that Steve Burke and Deborah Turnus and whoever else is doing the investigation is going to talk to this
He probably
policeman.
talked to the cop.
Right? And either they already
Yeah.
talked to him and said, all right, you're out. And then one more thing, Rick. He said that he contracted dysentery.
Yeah.
Now, no, dysentery isn't something that you take 2 aspirin, have a little soup, and hope that it goes away.
It's messy.
It's messy, and you have to get medical attention.
why was he drinking out of the
Therefore,
street?
That's a very good point. You do
Especially after
that.
the dead body.
Yeah.
The point being is that there's a record of this somewhere. You can't just recover on your own. So once those two things alone, there's 1,000 of them it seems, are proven, it's over.
I
That's
will
it.
submit that absolutely none of that matters. Here's what matters. If Lester Holt's ratings crater, if they try Matt or Savannah and their ratings crater, welcome back, Brian. The guy's been leading the race in that time slot for quite a while now. Lester's ratings did crater on Friday as compared to Monday through Thursday when Williams was there. If the ratings crater, he'll be back. If they don't,
Well,
Well,
I think
let's
the
let me
sign
just
for
get the
it.
numbers on Rick. It was a 36% drop
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
Monday
right.
through Thursday, and then when Lester came on
That's pretty
on
huge.
Friday, that's 1/3 of your audience.
That's
Really
huge.
big, yeah.
Your stage.
Well, look, I think that they are giving him a 6-month suspension so that they can really dig in, see how many bad things and how many skeletons in the closet
Or
are there,
just let it go
and
away. Yeah,
they don't
determine,
wanna know.
or so that way they can make an informed decision. They either let it dissipate and just go away, or they try for a comeback.
But let's say they do make an informed decision. Say, you know what? Maybe we didn't find anything. Isn't the trust now, Noelle? Isn't it gone?
The trust
Can
is
you
gone.
put Humpty Dumpty back
No.
together? Can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? Can you unring the bell? Give me another analogy. I'm on a roll.
No, it's not. And it's another thing is the people that run NBC are not idiots. These guys are cool executives. No, they're not. And there's no comeback for him. There's no spot they're saving for him, even if the ratings go down the tube with someone else. People don't trust him. Are you going to watch the news wondering, is that true? It's going to bring it back. It's going to resurrect it
I'm
the
with
minute
you
they
on
put him
that,
back.
and I have also my theory as to why he did it. And in the end, he wanted to be like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world who we have up here. It wasn't enough. He had he had 6 things going for him. He had fame, fortune, prestige, respect, looks, and an easy job, by the way, a
And a
22-minute
daughter on
broadcast
girls.
with
Daughter
all
on
those
girls.
resources. Incredible. Anyway, we got to go. Coming up next on The Wrap, the trial against the murderer of American sniper Chris Kyle began today. Finally, we'll let you know what happened. This is The Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everybody. I am Joe Concha from New York City. So today the trial got underway against Eddie Ray Ruth, the accused killer of American sniper Chris Kyle and his neighbor Chad Littlefield. Ruth got to know the men after they offered to help the vet who was suffering from PTSD, as so many vets do. On February 2nd, 2013, he was accused of shooting Kyle and Littlefield on a shooting range. You've heard the story. Now, a county district attorney, Alan Nash, here he is addressing the jury in Stevensville, Texas.
But in the end, we believe the key evidence that's going to guide you is going to guide you on 2 critical issues. And that is, did he intentionally cause the death of these 2 men? And when he did so, did he know what he was doing was wrong? And as they approached the shooting sports deck, they found Chad Littlefield shot 4 times in the back, 1 time in the hand, once in the face, once on the top of the head. And they found Chris Kyle shot 5 times in the back and side, and 1 time in the side of the head.
Anyway, Ruth's attorney, Tim Moore, responds.
But when he took their lives, he was in the grip of a psychosis. A psychosis so severe at that point in time that he did not know what he was doing was wrong. He had a drinking problem, probably too much smoking marijuana. But he was changed. And people will come and tell you how he was a changed person, that he was having at that time mental health problems.
Rick, mental health problems, that appears to be the strategy of the defense. Is this going to fly in Texas?
Not likely. That is basically what the defense is. They're going to go with insanity. The problem is in Texas, you can be insane, but if you are aware of the fact that what you're doing is wrong, the defense doesn't hold up. There is evidence that after he shot the 2, and that's not in question, by the way, he's either going to spend his life in a mental institution if his defense works or in jail if it doesn't. There's evidence that he went to his sister's house, told her what he did, and said he did something terrible and that he was planning to make his escape to Oklahoma, all of which are indicative that he did know it was wrong. One thing I do want to point out, everybody's talking about PTSD. Mm-hmm. There's also evidence that he was in Iraq but never saw any combat. So it may have, he obviously had mental issues.
Was he a chef?
May not be, yeah, I don't know.
He
It may
dealt
not
with
be
weapons.
PTSD. I don't know.
But he had also gone some other places and worked in Haiti as well. But, his mother had asked for help from Chris, very specifically because he had been in the VA several times. He had been diagnosed psychotic. He had threatened to kill several other people, including his ex-girlfriend. So what I don't understand is why Chris and his buddy decided to take him to a firing range knowing all of this.
It could be
For
pacifying to some
mental
people.
Actually,
help.
they did it all the time with PTSD
Well,
victims. That was how they helped
I
them.
don't really
Ironically.
understand how that helps.
No, I understand
I mean,
your
he
argument.
threatened to kill people.
But not relevant to
And,
the murder.
you know, part of the defense is that when they were driving to the firing range, Chris Kyle texted his friend who was driving and said, this guy is completely nuts. And the guy driving said, yeah, watch my six, because he was sitting in the back seat. They were already afraid of him on the drive out. So I don't really understand
that's
how
true.
all of this went down.
Well,
it's very concerning.
Hindsight 2020, you
But
don't think he's
luckily,
actually going to follow through
there,
with
you know,
something.
today they passed the Clay Hunt Act, which has a focus on suicidal tendencies and the mental health of veterans, and is a way to create more accessibility and better mental health care through the VA. So
That's good news.
you know, this is interesting that those two things are colliding right now.
No, well, what I wonder is American Sniper breaking records at the box office. It's a New York Times bestseller
Right.
by Chris Kyle. All the attention this movie's been getting because of Michael Moore and Seth Rogen and all the controversy. Everybody now knows the name Chris Kyle. They know American Sniper. They know about this case. I know you're not a lawyer, but can there be a fair trial here given just the public perception?
It's almost like the Bernie Madoff ordeal, where America knows about it. You know, it's not, can he get a fair trial? You know, yes, but welcome to Texas. I mean, this is where the death penalty is. This guy's not going to go to a mental health facility. This
Oh, no,
guy's
he's
not going to
They
go
didn't
to jail.
No, you're wrong.
This guy's going to,
Don't misinform people. They did not seek the death penalty.
I think that, well,
They didn't do it. It's over. It's off the table. I just don't want people to think that that can come back.
So it's
I
either
stand
life in
correct- I'm
prison.
not a lawyer, yeah.
Either life in prison or
it's life
Life.
in prison or
It's life
life
in
in a mental
prison.
institution.
Right.
if you made a bet right now,
Why?
10
I think
seconds.
the
Why is
mental
it not?
institution.
Why is it not on the table?
Up to the prosecutors to choose to go after it, and they didn't.
I think that's shocking.
didn't.
That
Yeah,
alone
Well, I
is
think
shocking.
people are much more aware now of PTS and what some of the effects are.
And we have to end it on that note. So coming up next, it's Political Potluck, the best part of the show, and it's only on the Daily Wrap right here on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for Political Potluck. As if we're going to a political potluck at a military base. Yes.
Everybody march.
Veteran watchers, this is our 11th show. This is the part of the show where we each bring a story to the party, just like bringing a dish of potluck to dinner, which I've never, again, been to before in
that
my
every
life.
night.
I know, because I really don't believe these actually
You
exist.
didn't
They
grow
do.
up in the South.
Or
You
the
know
Midwest.
potlucks, right?
I know 'em in the
Potluck.
Midwest.
Bring it on.
Is this
Yeah.
really? All right, Jersey, we didn't do that.
It's a
We ordered in
Southern
pizza,
thing.
which we actually did for the show. We're going to do it in a couple of minutes. Anyway, Jenny, what did you bring to potluck tonight?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the tragedy of the three Muslim students at UNC who were murdered last night or yesterday afternoon. Dea Bakarat, Yusor Abu Salah, and Razan Abu Salah. They're all between the ages of 19 and 23. Very upstanding, beloved students. Two of them are dental students who do a lot of community service in the area. They had been afraid of their neighbor. He had threatened them before, or what one of the fathers called picked on them before, and showed his gun to them before. Now, everybody's buzzing about this because, you know, this was a school shooting. Those constitute breaking news on a regular basis, even if somebody just has a gun near a college
But
campus.
Jon Stewart retired.
But
You expect that to be...
But last night, nobody reported it. It happened around 5 p.m., I
Right.
understand. Nobody reported it in the mainstream media until this morning. So, you know, there was a rush of Twitter hashtags, Muslim Lives Matter, you know, and then also, if it were a Muslim man who had just, you know, shot 3 white kids in the head, we'd be talking about the terror. We'd be throwing out the T word, you know, and quoting verses from the Quran. So everybody's a little astounded at what's been happening and very upset.
I think the state of news, you've nailed it completely. Last night, we saw it was wall-to-wall Brian Williams suspension. It was Jon Stewart also retired. Then for a while we had, well, since Jon Stewart's leaving The Daily Show and Brian Williams is being suspended, that must mean Jon Stewart is taking over. And meanwhile, a school shooting where three students are dead.
Kids are dead.
And it's so commonplace now, unfortunately, that it isn't. When it happened at Virginia Tech, that was horrifying. And you could go through campus after campus, and now we're just numb by it, Rick Unger.
Yeah, it's what's relevant is what you talked about, media covering media, which I'm a little sick of. We're not the story. We're supposed to cover the story.
You understand I write for Mediaite.
I understand,
and we cover
but
the
we are
media,
not the story.
and
We're here to
I'm gonna
talk
be out of a
about real
job
stories.
if you keep talking.
Jenny's right, though. She's right. I mean, it did. This happened yesterday afternoon. We didn't hear about it till this morning. Lots of questions over what motivated it. Was it a hate crime? Was it just, as some have said, that they had a disagreement over parking? It is true that the entire building was terrified of this guy. We don't know, but it is pretty weird that it took that long to hear about it.
Yeah, and if you look at his Facebook page, which is still up, he calls himself a new atheist, but he does talk a lot about religion and how much he hates religion, all religions really, and thinks it's the cause of all of our problems.
You had to love the Daily Caller's headline on it, though. Progressive atheist murders Muslims.
So it's even a blue-red story.
I mean,
even
come
when
on,
this happens. Yeah.
And I think it's sad because these kids are really upstanding people, and they are young Muslims in
were.
America who really dash all of the stereotypes of Muslims.
Well, yeah, they
that
did
people
volunteer
talk
work.
about.
That was the last Facebook post that they had.
And
you
the
know?
couple
So-
had just gotten married, and the wife had just gotten accepted
I
to
know.
dental school.
I know. It's the saddest thing, and I'm glad that was your potluck tonight, so we could finally cast a light on what should have been a major story. Rick, not too much time for your potluck.
Yeah, I guess not. Interesting development in the world of welfare. Tennessee has been running an experiment for the past 6 months to see how many people who are getting welfare are drug addicts. There's this whole meme out there that people on welfare are drug addicted losers who don't want to go to work. Well, the results are in. 0.2% of the people who took the test tested positive for any kind of drug use. Now, that may be an aberration, except wouldn't you know that they did the same thing in Utah? You know what the result was? 0.2%. The estimates of drug use in Tennessee, 6% of the general public. Estimates of drug use in Utah, 8% of the general public. No, folks, there are problems with welfare, but stop saying that these people are a bunch of loser drug addicts. They're taking fewer drugs than the general population.
Could
Enough.
it be that the drugs are so expensive that just welfare alone
Yes,
doesn't
it
allow them to
could.
afford it?
Yes, it could. And by the way, if you think that anybody's getting the message, Scott Walker in Wisconsin, my favorite governor, Scott Walker is pushing a bill through right now that if you're on food stamps and or getting unemployment insurance, then you have to be drug tested because apparently if you take drugs, you don't need to eat.
I can't believe they even did a poll
Which is just humiliating.
in Utah. Are there any
Yeah.
drugs there at all? I
Oh,
went
yeah.
skiing there
8%.
once.
8%.
Mormons don't do drugs.
No, I'm just saying. I went skiing there once at Snowbird, and the bars closed at like 11. It was pathetic. Anyway, coming up next, more political potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV, live from New York City. And welcome back to the show, everybody. Right now, we're talking about our favorite stories of the day. Of course, it is political potluck. Joining us for potluck for the first time, Noelle, what do you got?
Ooh, money. I want to talk about money.
love money.
I want to talk about
We love
2016 and where the money's going on the GOP side, because
Interesting.
that's what I know.
I'm going to say Jeb Bush is where we're going to go with that.
Jeb Bush is raking it in, but, you got that right, but Walker, Wisconsin Walker, who defeated the unions, made his state a right to work, had a lot of big donors that supported that movement. A lot of people are looking at Scott Walker. And you've got to remember, Scott Walker, governor of Wisconsin, doesn't even have a college degree. There's a lot of young
we
people.
know.
Yeah.
A lot of young people can identify with that. A lot of people,
Did he
know,
go
And
to
he
school
went
at all?
for 4 years
Yeah.
and then
One
didn't
second, did he go to
graduate.
school at all?
yeah, he went to college. He just didn't finish. Just
Grown
like
ups.
Mark
4 years.
Zuckerberg, there are tons of people, CEOs, politicians, tons of people that have achieved that did not have a formal education.
Did you know that Peter Jennings didn't even go to college, period? He just graduated high school now.
Except
Did
that-
you know Brian Williams is a neurosurgeon?
We had pictures of that somewhere.
Except that
Self-taught.
Governor Walker, to be fair, we should point out, unlike the other examples, got thrown out of school. And that's why he didn't graduate.
Oh, he lived a
What
little. He had a
for?
little fun.
He got thrown out.
Why?
He broke some rule.
That would be worse than doing cocaine in Columbia, right?
Then he went to the Red Cross.
He didn't get caught or
What?
thrown out.
Oh, well, I'm just saying
And
that
he graduated. And he went to law school.
There may or
And
may
he
or may not have-
graduated at the top
I'm
of his
just
class.
saying we can't judge any presidential candidate by what they did in college. Like,
It's impressive
right?
Not
that-
getting a
I think
degree.
it's
I'm
I'm
just saying
not
it's
a fan of
impressive.
his, but I think it's impressive
Yeah.
that he did what he did so young. He was one of the youngest.
Yeah,
right,
he's in his 40s. I mean, he's making a presidential run. I mean,
He's fantastic.
just look for
He's
some of the
not
money to go
fantastic,
there.
though.
He became a county executive where half of his staff are now in jail, and he went on to become one of the worst governors we've ever seen, promising to increase jobs in the state, and now has the worst job
So
record
why
in
is
Well,
he
he got
America.
leading
some
the
money.
polls the way he is if he's so horrible as you
Yeah,
described?
it's a
Boom.
little frightening, isn't it? And I think the good news is that, like so many Republican candidates we saw in the last election, he will not last at the front very long. He is, and look, you've heard me say it. I understand that Americans may want a conservative president this time around.
You got it.
I get it. He ain't it. He's not it. If he's
Who
the
is it?
best, you got.
Who is it,
Well,
naysayer?
you know what? It's not up to me to say what your party should do, but if you want to win
You
and
know
have an
what?
intelligent
But
president,
if-
Jeb Bush is
If-
your guy.
If you don't like it and you say that is this the best the Republicans can come up with, what would your solution be?
Jeb Bush would
Okay.
be my
That's all I
solution.
ask.
Yeah.
Just give me an answer.
I think Jeb Bush
Ask
is
and
not
answer.
somebody
He's
who I'll vote
definitely
for,
gonna
but
be
I
the
would sleep at
nominee.
night if he were president still.
Good to
I
hear.
would too. I
Good to hear.
agree with
He's an
that.
intelligent guy.
I'll make sure he asks you for a donation.
Well,
He's
you won't
smart, he's
get
got
it.
a
I don't
great
want to
life.
be president, but at least he's
Okay.
competent.
So everybody, the horse that people are backing right now is Scott Walker.
They're
And I-
looking
still more
at
Jeb
Scott
Bush,
Walker.
right?
Jeb
he
Bush
up in
has
the
the
polls?
early money, and he got the early money as soon as Mitt Romney pulled out. Everybody was like the floodgates open. Now people are starting to look behind their back, going, "Oh, this Walker kid may be a good investment." So he is getting some money. Yes,
Why,
he is, and
though?
he's
What-
doing good in
what
the
is it
polls.
that- What is it that they think makes him a
Oh,
good bet?
there's a couple of things. The right to work deal, he took on the unions. You guys,
They
that's
love
tough.
that.
The unions are tough, you know.
Particularly in a blue state
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. So,
And he's won 3 elections, even though he only really had to win
and,
2. So
and the
that's
other
pretty
one was a
impressive.
close one. That last one was a close one.
That's
He said
true.
he had the unions going against him. So put him on a
But
national
is that going to
stage.
work in the national stage?
Put it,
I don't know.
It sure can.
Getting
but
rid of unions.
Look how big the unions are,
The,
and
the
they're
Democrat
scary.
in me hopes you run him. The American in me says, God forbid this is who you would pick.
Thankfully, we have 22 whole months to discuss this and let this
Yeah,
all work
over
out.
and
We have a
over
reason to
and
exist.
over.
Exactly. So, hey, everybody, it's my turn for a political potluck. And boy, I've wanted to talk about this for a while. My birthday, as I mentioned last night, is coming up on Monday. And apparently that is a holiday. That is President's Day. So even more reason to take me out on Sunday night, if you so choose, if you're in the New York, New Jersey area. Now, I turn, and you're not going to believe this, the power of makeup and the Viagra and the Botox and everything else in theory, I will only be 44 years young. And what horrified me, my wife and I were out at a bar in Hoboken just a couple weeks ago, and it was a younger crowd, but we didn't realize what younger meant. So I guess my political potluck is, you want to feel old? Those of you watching out there that may have been born before 1980, well, get this. So we were talking to 2 people that just happened to be next to us when we were waiting for the bartender. Person was wearing the same baseball cap as where my wife went to school. And we said, oh, so, how long have you been coming here? And the friend of the person we were talking to says, oh, well, actually, my birthday was last week, so this is my first time here. So, oh, well, how old are you? They said, 21. And then I realized, it hit me. To get into a bar legally in the United States, you could be born in 1994 and be in that bar. And that freaked me out.
Yeah,
1994, that's when True Lies came out. And now these people are in bars with me. So the point is, everybody,
What is the point?
enjoy your youth while you can. It goes by, Rick, before
You're saying this to
you
me?
know it. I gotta go because I'm getting old during this segment alone. Up next, can you imagine The Daily Show without Jon Stewart? Well, we'll have the stunning retirement announcement in just a moment on The Daily Wrap. And welcome back to The Daily Show, everybody. Just kidding. It's The Daily Wrap. I'm Joe Concha. This was one Jon Stewart. Let's take a look. Back in 1999, talk about subtle changes over at The Daily Show. Well, there is one more subtle change coming. Jon Stewart, 52 years young, announced last night that he is leaving The Daily Show after 17 years. Let's take a listen.
Doug Herzog, Michelle Gainless of Comedy Central gave me an incredible opportunity 17 years ago to pilot this wonderful franchise. In my heart, I know it is time for someone else to have that opportunity. And not right away. It's going to be, we're still working out details, but this show doesn't deserve an even slightly restless host, and neither do you. It's been an absolute privilege. It's been the honor of my professional life. And I thank you for watching it, for hate watching it. You get in this business with the idea that maybe you have a point of view and something to express, and to receive feedback from that is the greatest feeling you can ask for. And I thank you.
Heartfelt, and as Stewart said, he has not announced any formal professional plans, but he does have a very important dinner in the books.
I don't have any specific plans. Got a lot of ideas. I got a lot of things in my head. I'm gonna have dinner on a school night with my family, who I have heard from multiple sources are lovely people.
Comedy Central had this to say about Stewart. For the better part of the last 2 decades, we have had the incredible honor and privilege of working with Jon Stewart. His comedic brilliance is second to none. Through his unique voice and vision, the Daily Show, has become a cultural touchstone for millions of fans and an unparalleled platform for a political comedy that will endure for years to come. And Jon will always be a big part of the Comedy Central family. So, Rick, Stewart definitely changed the landscape of fake news, obviously, and changed the political dialogue as well.
He did, and I was so pleased that he mentioned Doug Herzog, who originally hired him. Doug is an old friend of mine, one of the greats.
MTV, right?
Well, he started at Comedy Central, went to MTV.
Right.
And that's right, wonderful guy. I mean, look, you talk to a millennial, you talk to anybody young out there, they're getting their news from Jon Stewart. And I'm sure that whoever replaces them, they'll be getting their news from that person. It's a great format. He's a brilliant guy. We'll all miss him.
16 years, Noel, he's been doing this job. And it's a very formulaic show. It's obviously the story has changed, but it's more or less the same. You play a clip and maybe you take it out of context a little bit, and then he does the stupid face and the seals and the audience clap, and it's just been night and night and night again. It does incredible ratings, particularly in the demo.
Yep.
More young people get their news from Jon Stewart than say from a Brian Williams or a David Muir.
It's funny, I've done the Daily Show several times, and I may be on any network and do something, and I'll get a little bit of feedback here and there. When I do the Daily Show, I can't even go through the emails and the tweets and the things that I get. Not all good either. But I think that every good thing must come to an end. And I think you might be wrong on something. I think Jon Stewart is the Daily Show. And I think that we're about to find out if he has a replacement, that the Daily Show may be in another slot like The View, where it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo and nobody,
That could happen.
loses viewers. Jon Stewart was the brand of that show.
Here's where you're wrong.
Craig Kilborn was great.
But, well, not so much
Before him.
Kilborn. Not so much Kilborn. I don't want to go back that far. Different show. When Stewart took off a whole summer to direct Rosewater, and John Oliver stepped in, it didn't miss a beat.
No, it didn't.
I say it's powered by the writing, by the writers, and by the fact that it's just the way they present that show. Stewart is great. I'm not taking away anything
he
from
was
him.
coming back, so they had to still remain a loyal
The show
viewer.
is awesome
They knew he was
still.
They're
coming
making a
back.
paycheck. I mean,
Let
that's
me
what,
win this point.
You're right.
They didn't
You
miss.
got it
They didn't
right.
miss a beat, and whoever
No,
they put
didn't.
in there,
And look
it
at
will
John
continue to do
Oliver's
well.
show now. It's a wonderful show over at HBO. There are people
John's-
out
There are a
there,
lot
the
of
writers.
correspondents.
You're right. It's the writers.
Right, and Jenny,
the
I'll
writers are great.
I'll get to what I think the point you're going to make in a moment,
Samantha
which
Bee
is
will
not
take it over.
only has The Daily Show had a huge impact on pop culture, but think of all the stars that Jon Stewart launched. He's like a mini Lorne Michaels. Here they are in no particular order: Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, John Oliver, the aforementioned, Larry Wilmore, who now is Colbert's replacement, Ed Helms, you know him from The Hangover, Olivia Munn, most recently on HBO's The Newsroom, Michael Chi, who co-hosts Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live, many, many others. Now, your final thoughts on Mr. Stewart?
Yeah, I think there are many correspondents at The Daily Show that are poised to take over. My vote is Jessica Williams. She's hilarious. She's smart. She was on the cover of Wired in January. And she
lot of
has
people
this
agree
whole
with you.
idea of using celebrity culture to really get young people invested in actual issues. She says they're going to think they're getting dirt, but we're feeding them vegetables. I think that's brilliant.
That's the line we're going to end on, everybody. So I thank you, Jenny Crumpton and Rick Unger and Noel Cord. You're great guests tonight. We appreciate you being here with us. It's The Daily Show from New York. Thanks, everybody. Good night.